Good day. Welcome to Entrepreneurship to the Point. My name is Kujo Langa. I am the head of monitoring and evaluation at Property Point. Entrepreneurship to the Point exists to create economic inclusion through entrepreneurship. We do that by equipping, informing, and inspiring all entrepreneurs from all walks of life. We are live on YouTube. You can also join us on YouTube. Today, I am joined by an international guest, which I'll tell you about in a short moment. Please do follow-ups on our social media platform and also ETTP on YouTube. Please subscribe because we do post very much interesting content on the website, and a lot of this webinars are also posted on the website, and you can also view them through YouTube. On WhatsApp, on social media, on Facebook. We are also on Instagram and Twitter at ETTP. Today in Johannesburg, the weather is a bit chilly. The sun is out, but it's very cold as it has to be on a winter afternoon. So please join me in welcoming our guest today. His name is Karl Loo. He's the founder and CEO of Service Hero. Service Hero is a leading home services marketplace in Malaysia, and they have operations in Singapore and Thailand. He will be telling us about his business journey, his entrepreneurial journey, how he has faced adversity, how he is now pivoting his business model to fit the operating needs of the COVID-19. Karl, welcome to Entrepreneurship to the Point.
Thank you for having me.
How's the weather in
Singapore? In Singapore, it's always sunny. So I think today is probably about 35 degrees as it is every day.
How I wish I was in Singapore, because in Joburg, you can see me, I'm all dressed up. It's extremely cold, and it's been cold in the last couple of days.
Yeah. No, it gets cold in the office because it's the air conditioning is always on way too high.
Oh, that's great. So before we get to talk about you and your entrepreneurial journey, Karl, just tell us about your experience during COVID-19. Was there a lockdown in Singapore? What's the experience like that side of the world?
Yeah, so as you guys may know, there was quite a significant outbreak a couple of months ago with COVID-19 in Singapore, and we were getting daily infection rates. For a country that's only about 4.5 million people, we're getting infection rates of about 1,000 plus per day at one point. So the country went into lockdown, and it was a pretty strict lockdown in Singapore. Only kind of essential excursions to the grocery store were really allowed, and then every time that you were out, you've got to make sure that you're masked up. And what you've seen across Southeast Asia is very, very stringent kind of mechanisms put in place to make sure that they lower the risk of transmission. So before you go into any building, there's a temperature check. There's the very comprehensive contact tracing. So every facility, office, building, supermarket I go into, we have a government app, which we need to scan a QR code and log ourselves into. And later on, I'll show you some of the high-tech stuff that's happening here as well.
It's the new normal, right? And in South Africa also, similarly, we went through a hard lockdown in the late March. So for 3 weeks, we were on level 5. There was a restriction on movement. There was a curfew, only essential services. Similarly, grocery stores, fuel stations, but only essential workers, for example, those that assist in providing power, electricity, etc., etc. So I think the world is pretty much going through the same thing right now. And who could have thought that we would be going through the same thing as a world? It's COVID-19 is that monster that just came and shocked the entire world. And I think as much as there's chaos, and there's similarly also opportunities for entrepreneurs. And in so saying, I want us to tell us a bit about yourself and what your company has been doing during COVID-19 lockdown.
Yeah, sure. Before we formally start, I wanted to share a picture with you all to give you a little bit of context.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with us.
My kind of connection with with South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah, it's I'll show you. This is so actually once upon a time I lived in Cape Town, and actually that's me in just New Year's 2019 actually. So South Africa has a close place in my heart.
I was also on the same spot at some point in Cape Town when I went to Cape Town for the first time last year. So this is a favorite spot for, so it's quite interesting. A lot of South African also, when they go to Cape Town, that's the best spot to take pictures because it has got the great background of the Table Mountain.
I think, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you've got to take a picture there when you're in Cape Town, don't you?
Of course, you have to. I mean, Cape Town is one of the best cities in the world.
So yeah, I actually spent 2 years in Cape Town. Actually had a couple of e-commerce sites based in Cape Town, but we'll get to that. So just a little bit of background about my entrepreneurial journey and a little bit about myself that may give the viewers a little bit of color into who this guy is, right? So I am a Malaysian who grew up in New Zealand, so that explains the funny accent. And actually my first career was as a commercial lawyer. So I was an information technology lawyer. So my specialization in commercial law was information technology. So I was the guy who drafted those really boring terms and conditions that you see that you have to accept before you start an app or sign up to an email service or something like that. You know, I know you guys don't read it, but someone had to draft those. So that was what I did for about 3 years. 3 years of my life, and I got to work with some really cool kind of tech companies, and I guess Google was I guess one of the most important clients that I had as my first career as a lawyer. But alongside being a lawyer, my undergraduate was also in computer information systems. So I had a little bit of a technical background. I tutored user experience design while I was at university as well. And, you know, so after I graduated, I practiced law for 3 years and realized it wasn't for me. But I didn't know what I wanted to do actually at that point, but I knew that it wasn't the law. I booked a one-way ticket to China to learn Chinese.
That was a bold move. I mean, this is often true for a lot of young people. We go into university, we study, and suddenly we realize that, okay, maybe that's not really what I wanted to get into. Yeah. And there's just the quest of finding your purpose in the world. I mean, exactly. Early 20s, that's pretty much, you spend a lot of time trying to find your feet in the world.
Exactly. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I enrolled myself in a Chinese course in 2009, just post global financial crisis, moved to Shanghai, learned Chinese full-time for a year. I was a terrible student, actually. So my Chinese is not that great.
Learning language is not easy. It's never easy, especially as an adult.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it was a full-time course, but I did meet some amazing people in 2009 when I was in China. And I happened to meet a senior executive from Groupon. I'm sure you guys are familiar with
Groupon. Yes, totally. But I think that service has been discontinued in South Africa.
Yes. And I think in many places around the world that the business is either gone or it's kind of changed or merged with another company. But in 2010, Groupon was, you know, growing like a weed around the world, and they were preparing for an IPO in America. And I happened to meet one of the vice presidents at Groupon while I was in Shanghai, and randomly became one of the first employees for their China operation.
Going to China was a great move for you.
Yeah, and it was my first exposure into really scaling up a startup at a massive scale. So I joined as the first couple of dozen employees, and eventually the China operation for Groupon became 3,000 employees within 9 months. Yeah. And I was the regional director of Southeast China. Got my first taste of startup entrepreneurship, that point as an employee. But I saw a business go from zero to a 3,000 person organization just off, you know, a website. You know, this was really before the time of having even mobile apps. The business IPO'd. And after that, I spent some time tinkering around on some other projects. And then eventually made my way to Cape Town. So I had a friend that was in Cape Town. He said he had a brilliant idea to start up some e-commerce sites. I said, look, I'm going to help you for a couple of weeks. I think it'd be quite interesting to have some experience in, in Africa, and, I had planned to do my MBA, and he said, it'll be great for you to come down and have some African experience before you do your MBA. And I ended up staying 2 years. The business was invested in by a South African media company called Naspers.
Nice.
Eventually, we became a 300-person company and one of the largest online stores. Style 36, 5 Rooms, and Kinderella were the 3 brands that we operated. And then in 2013, there was a full buyout by Naspers. And I went on a sabbatical, spent some time doing my master's in the UK, and spent a stint in Silicon Valley after that, working on a Y Combinator startup. And as a Malaysian-born entrepreneur who's experienced in emerging markets, it was quite unusual that I'd never built something in Southeast Asia, right, in Malaysia, where I was born.
True. Especially having traveled the world and leading a big organization all over the world, it was only fitting that you start something.
Yeah. And so I was in Malaysia in the early 2015, and I saw that there was a lot of opportunity. There was great kind of infrastructure to build game-changing kind of companies. The internet speeds are super fast. I think it was 20 megabits per second in 2015 on my phone, and then the slowest internet speed I can get in my home was 100 megabits per second. Now everyone gets 1 gigabit per second, but 5 years ago,
I think you should come to South Africa. It's not the same. You are talking great numbers right now.
Yeah. So I mean, the slowest speed possible in Singapore to get is 300 megabits per second. Right?
Wow.
So
that's a dream. That's a dream come true. Yeah. If ever I get into a space and the speed is that fast, I would love to live in that place forever and ever and ever.
Yeah. So I thought there was a lot of opportunity, the great kind of infrastructure around building internet businesses. And then I took a crack at it, and I thought, I think the services industry is something that could be disrupted. I'd been using apps to live my life when I lived in San Francisco. I had an app for my laundry. I got my food delivered on demand and all that kind of stuff. And specifically, I was using a company called Thumbtack.com to find service providers, and I thought I could replicate that in Malaysia.
Sorry, Karl, I want to disturb you. You mentioned a very critical point in your journey. You spoke about doing an MBA. You think that gives you a competitive advantage in starting your own business? The knowledge that it comes with, does it make you a good entrepreneur?
I don't think it makes you a good entrepreneur. I mean, I think, doing an MBA is probably about meeting interesting people and widening your network. I'll be honest, when I look at CVs and I look about people that I want to bring onto a startup, I kind of I'm like, oh, that person did an MBA. I don't know if they can actually, are they an operator, or are they someone who just like to theorize around things? And I say that even though I didn't MBA.
So would you safely say MBAs are overrated?
Look, I don't think you need to do an MBA. I have a lot of respect for people who do MBAs, but I think if you want to, if you think that you're going to have learn a lot of kind of direct skills that will be relevant to you in building a company at an MBA, I think that's not really the reason why you do an MBA. I think it's about meeting interesting people and having a strong network that is going to follow you in years to come and decades to come. And now I look back, it's 6 years since my MBA, and some of my best friends came from the MBA, and many of my early employees at Servicero I recruited from my MBA class. So I think that was advantageous.
That's good. So that it's good for building a network, a very good network base for future connections if you decide to go into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I know you just started talking about your business now, and one of the unfortunate things about having a business orientated mind is that creative people, right? Like, you often have this crazy ideas about changing the world. How did you know you had a great idea?
how did I know I had a great idea? You know, so I I think being an entrepreneur, a founder of a company, you kind of spend a lot of time trying to reconcile a lot of facts and things that you read about and kind of trends that you see. So remember when I talked about when I came to Malaysia, I started noticing that there was great internet infrastructure, right? People had high speed kind of internet on their phones at their and at home. Everyone has a smartphone. Mobile data penetration was very, very high in 2015. But I felt that there was this weird kind of situation where people were still doing many things in a very archaic way. And it didn't make sense to me, right? So I talk about this story time and time again, but I'll share it with it now. And how Service Hero came about was because I was on a search for an aircon technician to fix a broken aircon in my new condo. And I called my auntie and I asked her, you know, can you recommend someone? And I was living in a district that she wasn't too familiar with. She's like, no, I can't recommend anyone, but it's really easy. Just go downstairs and look for a tree. And then on the tree, there'll probably be a signboard and someone will be advertising.
I very much know about that system.
Yeah, it will be advertising for aircon services, moving services, cleaning services. And, you know, lo and behold, when I went downstairs, there were just like these wooden signboards attached to trees in Malaysia in 2015. And it had a number. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that this aircon technician has a smartphone. I have a smartphone, but in order for me to connect with him, I didn't go through an app. I actually had to go to a tree, right? So I was like, you know, why don't we disintermediate the tree, right? Why don't we create a marketplace, a mobile app that can connect me with a whole swath of vendors? And there's nothing that should be stopping this, given that the infrastructure was already there. So how did I think it was a great idea? Well, you know, I felt that there was enough general kind of hints to me that something like this could take off. It was a model that had worked in the United States. And then we built it and then we launched it. And we got an early signs of real traction, right? So, you know, that's how we knew that there was at least some.
That was a great idea. And also, I mean, the marketplace phenomena is quite, it's growing throughout the world, and it's big in China. I know there's quite a lot of organizations that are growing because they have been able to create a platform for suppliers and buyers and with a minimal cost. So how did you start? So your idea was there. You knew obviously there was an opportunity in the marketplace, and building an app or a system like that is not cheap. How did you raise the funding?
Yeah, well, I tell you, like, I think everyone thinks that you need to have everything perfect before you have a business, right? And I'm really of a lean methodology, you know, to see if things work, and then if it works, then we scale it out. So when we decided to launch the app, we wanted to see whether or not there was any demand and anyone would actually use something like this. So there's actually two critical components to a marketplace: a supply side tool, right, and a demand side tool. And when we launched Service Hero, we actually only had one real side of the marketplace, and that was a mobile app for consumers, right? That we would see if anyone would actually use this MVP that we created. What a lot of people don't know is for the first couple of months, we really had no proper backend, right? So for the first,
that's quite normal for a startup. You don't have the resources to have a solid backend. You, as the entrepreneur, do everything. You are the admin, the marketing, business development, some point the developer in your case.
So we launched the application on the App Store. A consumer would make a request on the app, and then there would be some sort of matching. You know, today there's a matching algorithm, and then a service provider is notified of a job opportunity. Actually, in truth, 5 years ago when we first launched, there was an app. Someone made a request. It will pop up on a desktop in our office, and an intern would then go through a phone book and try to find someone to actually do to actually claim the job, put it in the back end. It would be pushed to the app, and then it would look as if there was some sort of magic happening that would connect the two. So after running in that kind of very hacky way, eventually over time, you know, we'd spend the time building the technology to support this, and we realized that we had a demand for the products. We had to make sure that we had a service provider application that was, you know, well run right? And so
and all of that was bootstrapped. Was it funded out of your own pocket?
So the very early stages, we self-funded the development of the product, and we have many friends who chipped in and helped in development as well, and so we could keep our costs very low. But we were really fortunate. A couple of weeks or months into the project, that the app started getting a little bit of prominence in Southeast Asia. It was one of the first of its kind in Malaysia. And investors started reaching out and seeing if they could support our project. And so,
but at the time, your business was solid. You had a client base, you had a product. Your value proposition was very, very clear, and you ensured that your back end, obviously, it's effective enough. I mean, that's the only way you attract investors. Otherwise, they don't come into place. They need to come into a business that is promising, high growth.
I mean, 2015 was a really interesting time as well. So I think there was a lot of venture capital that was coming into Southeast Asia that was seeing it as a really big growth opportunity, like how many people are seeing the African continent as a big kind of growth opportunity and business opportunity as well for rapid modernization. So for us, I think it was right place, right time, right? You said that we had a solid business before we got funding. I wouldn't say it was solid, but it was showing signs of traction that made it attractive. And you kind of married that with the kind of capital that was really flowing into Southeast Asia in 2015, and we were able to secure some funding, which enabled us to scale the business. And very quickly, we scaled our app out into Singapore, and then into Thailand. So within a year, we had moved into 3 countries. Yeah.
That's great. So I'm so excited about the future, because I think with limited movement and the need for people to start working online, it's becoming more critical for organizations to have an online presence. And just before I move on to this one, I just want to get into how you've been able to pivot your business model to provide a different service. So that's a lateral diversification, something totally new. It wasn't your service offering. A lockdown was announced and you saw an opportunity. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, look, I think that was one of the scary, when the pandemic happened, when the lockdowns happened, it was one of the most scary times as a business owner that I ever experienced. So our company is effectively an on-demand home services company. You know, you use an app to invite strangers into your home to fix your air conditioning unit, to clean your home, etc. Right? What happens when laws are passed, which basically say that you can no longer operate your business because you can't have people going into homes, right? We saw basically overnight our business revenues collapse, right? And we had to make some really big changes very, very quickly. So first country to lock down in Southeast Asia was Malaysia, where we have our biggest office, right? So obviously a big impact. And at that point in time, I really had to make a decision. Was this lockdown going to be something that was going to last 2 weeks, which is what the government had announced?
There was a lot of uncertainty, still is.
There's a lot of uncertainty, yeah. So they announced it was going to be a 2-week lockdown. Singapore at that point had not locked down. Thailand was still open at that point as well. Well, I had seen what was happening in Europe and in China and seen those massive lockdowns. And I was like, I'm pretty sure the same thing is going to happen, right? And the only things that are operating there are essential services companies. So I made the call and I said, we have to become an essential services company because I think this is something that's not going to end. So even 4 months after the lockdown, so the lockdowns happened in early March, Singapore is still under some form of lockdown. Had I not made that transition to become an essential services company, I don't know where we would have been, but
you would have probably been defunct, like many companies.
We wouldn't have been around. So
I suppose that's being entrepreneurial, right? Seeing opportunities and jumping on them, not waiting for perfection. Because oftentimes the biggest challenge is that a lot of businesses wait for it. They want to perfect it. They sit in their rooms or their garages and they want to by the time they get into the market, it's already late. You've got a lot of companies that are already sitting out at the market share.
So I think something very important lesson from that is that when there is crisis, there's a really big opportunity. So, okay, first we pivoted, we became an essential services company. We became a disinfection on-demand company, right? So these are the the people with the fogging machines and the hazmat suits. And that's what we started off as. And now we've kind of expanded into many other things, but all related to COVID-19 and virus containment. Now, at that point when the lockdowns happened, there were some entrepreneurs, most business owners, and most large organizations scaled everything back in terms of marketing, right? And things became very quiet when it came to marketing a business. We saw this as an opportunity when our competitors and the general kind of landscape around services or on-demand services was quiet, for us to go all in. So we decided to pump up marketing, right? And say, you know, this is what we're doing. We're offering disinfection, and because we were the only guys that were loud and aggressive during that point in time, we became the market leaders in Southeast Asia for virus containment services, even bettering a lot of established property management and established companies like Rent-A-Kill or whatever that are offering disinfection or sanitation services. So we got our name. We were able to secure some very big contracts, including with the Singapore government.
That's absolutely great.
The National Healthcare Group. And then that reputation kind of like just exploded the business, and it helped us survive, and more than that, helped us thrive. And then there were a lot of dots that we could put together, and I was lucky to reconnect with Sayo from Kandua, and he saw what I was doing, and he said, look, like, is there a way that we could bring all the learnings that you have from Southeast Asia, from Singapore, to South Africa? And I said, yeah, let's do it, right? And so that's how we ended up in
okay, that's absolutely great. Great opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's definitely a huge need for your services in South Africa. The infection rate is increasing daily. I think now we are within the top 10. We even surpassed the UK. So I think from here, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
You know, when people say that it's important to be really purpose-driven when when you're running a business, and all team members need to be driven by a purpose, there is no greater purpose right now than to actually contain the spread of COVID-19, right?
I absolutely agree with you. Karl, we don't really have a lot of time left. I just want to get into some of your personal experiences in running a business.
Yeah.
Did you experience failure? And if you did, what did you learn from that?
Absolutely. I think that I've experienced failure in many different ways. I'll tell you about the Service Hero experience, right? So we launched 5 years ago. We raised a lot of funding. We went big and we scaled out the business very, very early on. And we realized that we didn't really have the best product market fit. And that was the first time in my life that I really felt that I had at that point in time, I felt like the biggest kind of failure is that we didn't get product market fit. We had to lay off some people, and we had to rethink a lot of the business. And you know, the lesson that I've learned now, and I got really down after that, and then managed to kind of turn things around and really grow the business again after that. But what I learned is that actually the entrepreneurial journey is full of so many failures, right? So over the last 5 years,
that's true. That's very true. It's not so perfect.
We fail all the time. So just having the attitude is like failure is part of the process, right? And that things you learn from them, you get better. And as long as you have an attitude of actually learning from failure, you can improve iteratively, right? And so now I don't get so hung up about things. If I fail, I learn the lesson, and the team needs to be motivated to and understand that failure is part of the process.
Oh, that's really good. I think sometimes we are so scared of failure that we don't even start because of the fear of failing. For me personally, I think entrepreneurs should not be scared to fail, because if you fail fast and you fail forward. In that way, you can be able to learn lessons, apply them, and be able to navigate this entrepreneurial journey a lot more better. Which now brings me to my next question. Because happiness sits at the center of it all, right? You don't want to be in business and be sad and be stressed about stuff and your clients all the time. Are you happy? And if you are, what would you change?
Yeah, no. So I am in a really good place right now with the organization. And I think happiness is really important. Aligning yourself with a purpose is so important to running a business. So you know, there are a lot of a few cliches that we kind of talk about, which is like fail fast and be aligned with purpose. But the cliches for a reason, actually, they're really important, right? And people repeat them. So having a resilient attitude, so knowing that failure is part of the process is going to help you in terms of your long-term happiness as a founder and a business owner. Don't get down on little hiccups. Know that if you are resilient, you can get through things, and make sure that your purpose is very clear. So, whether that's making a lot of money or helping the world, right? You have to make sure that you surround yourself, your organization is built with people that have a desire to deliver on that purpose, right? For us, it is very clear what we want to achieve in the medium term for our business, right? And that is to control the spread of COVID-19, right? And so I feel incredibly proud that our business is tackling a very important issue, and it's growing, it's doing well. And at the end of the day, if you're doing well as an organization, you will feel happy, right?
True.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
take care of your health,
great.
guys. Like all budding entrepreneurs, like I think that it's important that your physical health and you take care of your mental health, because an entrepreneur journey is actually a very traumatic one. You go through a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
It's not as easy as they portray it in movies and magazines. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind closed doors, and I think it's important for people who are very interested who are interested in entrepreneurship to know these things, because you don't want to be in the journey and suddenly you realize that it's not for you, and you have wasted a lot of money and a lot of time which could have been invested in doing something meaningful. And earlier on, you spoke about the team that you built earlier on in your startup. How did you build that team? Because accomplishing greater things requires an A-class team. And as much as every entrepreneur wants to be self-made man and do everything themselves, that's not possible. You need a group of people to support you in your dream. So what are some of the elements that you look into when you are putting a team together?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So you have, at different stages of the organization, you may have different people, right? And so when you talk about team building, it's not necessarily like you will have the same team forever, right? The team that we have at Service Hero today is actually very radically different from the team that we had in year one, right? And I think it's taken the 5 years for us to really understand what makes a great team member for Service Hero, and then we're defining that culture along the way. So the culture that we defined at the very beginning may not be what we actually end up living, right? So, I think you need to get to a point that you're very clear about what culture you need. Is it high performance? Is it about having fun? Is it about learning? Is it, what is it? And then build a team around that. Now, having a team of great people is one aspect of it, but as a leader of an organization, I think the most critical skill I've learned is communicating the reasons for decision making, right? So the early entrepreneur version of me would have an idea in my mind and then just want everyone to execute it. And I wouldn't invest the time in explaining rationales behind it because I didn't think that people needed to know, right? But what I found is that the best way to get the most out of your team is to, yes, have a target, right? But then explain the rationale behind decisions. And then I think it allows your team members to contextualize and be able to make smarter decisions to deliver on those goals, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a lesson I've learned.
That's great. So we do have a question from one of the audiences. They want to know, in which industry do you think the next tech wave is going to be post COVID-19?
Oh, post COVID-19.
Yeah.
So many things. Anything that is going to support remote working, right? So I think the whole idea of the 9 to 5, 5-day a week office in the office is completely disrupted, right? So Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought it was possible to achieve what we have as an organization, um, what we've achieved over the last couple of months, completely as a remote workforce, right? So our team has hardly been in the office. And now as we are coming back, I've actually told the team that, in Malaysia, it is a 3-day in the office work week. Then your Mondays and Fridays are off, right? I believe that the idea of being in an office 5 days a week, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever it is outdated. It's a rule that was invented 100 years ago, before there was the internet, before there was mobile smartphones. And having people in an office 5 days a week, I believe, is actually, in the context of information moving so quickly and being hyper connected, is actually very damaging, right? And I think it's not sustainable for humankind, right, to continue working in a
I've seen it
way.
I think, sorry to interrupt, I've seen it now, most recent. The focus is no longer on you getting into the office and check in and having your bum on the seat. It's about outputs, right? What can you do? What do you need to produce to the company? Having strict timelines. And it also gives us access to a very talent pool, whereas in the past, you would have limited talent pool because you'd need to have people in the office. Right now, you can achieve more with less because you have ease of access to all this talent pool in the world.
Yeah, it's limitless now. So for me, I think the biggest kind of growth industries, anything that is going to enable remote working more effectively. Obviously, things like Zoom that we're using now is doing very well, but I think you're going to see even more innovations that are going to help people manage teamwork better as a remote workforce as well. So tools around that, information sharing, and I don't know, maybe some way to bring the kind of offline experiences that we had with teamwork online. So I think that's a big one. And healthcare and services like disinfection. That's going to be big.
If you have if a pandemic is rising like this, you clearly would need a lot of healthcare facilities.
Look, I think there is now,
be able to assist.
There's now a hyper awareness about germs, right? That didn't exist before, and we should have been for many decades aware of the risk of infection from dangerous viruses, but we weren't. And now it's a big wake up call, right? And I think from here on in, everyone is going to know, that you should be careful, and people are going to wear masks a lot more. In Japan and Taiwan and in Singapore, if you were sick with the flu before the pandemic, you would wear a mask.
Wear a mask,
right? But then in South Africa, in Western countries, no one would wear a mask. So you've seen behavioral shifts now, right? People are hyper aware of the real risks and social changes.
Yeah, true. So I also think there's going to be a big growth in that space. Karl, you've been in South Africa, you spent 2 years here, and I just wanted to pick your brain. What do you think South African entrepreneurs are not doing that entrepreneurs are doing in Malaysia or in Thailand or Singapore? What are they doing different? I mean, we see quite a lot of growth from an SME perspective. The economy is doing well that side. What do you think? What can you advise South African entrepreneurs to do, since you've been here, you've experienced how we do business this side?
I don't know if things have changed, but when I was in South Africa, I felt that South Africans did not really take a regional, continental approach to their business. So it's like, I'm going to build something for South Africa, right? And they wouldn't really expand it, especially in a startup, to other countries around South Africa rapidly. What I found in Southeast Asia is that people build regional companies from day one, right? So Serviceur was built as a Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore company, and that plan was imbued in the company on day one, right? Because we knew that the markets are, the big market opportunity for the region. And every Southeast Asian country, if you're not familiar with it, is very different. They speak different languages. The people look different. So they're very different cultures and markets, but still people have that regional kind of outlook.
Okay.
I think South Africans could do well if they look to be more.
So you need to look beyond the borders and design solutions for Africans, not just for South Africans.
Yeah. I think you guys need faster internet, because I think that when I was there,
I'm sure if we've got faster internet, we'll be able to do a lot of great things.
What's the speed now? What's the speed now for a home internet line?
So my home, I'm running on 20 megabytes per second, and that's the maximum.
Wow.
Some places they go as much as 40. I know some places go to 100, but you'd have to pay a lot of money to have access to that amount of speed.
Yeah, I remember internet being very expensive. So I think the price of internet needs to go down. And I think when you have fast internet speeds, I think you can have more innovative products. Because to be honest, like a lot of
the possibilities are limitless when you have a faster internet speed. I mean, right now I tell you there are companies who are selling 4 megabyte per second line, and that is still South African. That is still expensive for an average South African. So from an infrastructure point of view, there's still a lot that needs to be done in South Africa for us to start competing with companies in Malaysia or Singapore or Thailand. But we're getting there, surely. So there's a lot of small businesses in the space that are pivoting, that have excellent ideas, that are executing. But like you said, it's developing, having that continental or regional mindset so that you can scale up quite fast and scale up quickly in the marketplace. That's absolutely great. How did you handle adversity and doubt? Because I know friends are going to doubt you, family sometimes is going to encourage you, but there are those in the family that might think you have got a crazy idea, you're investing a lot of these resources in an idea that might not work, because people sometimes think backward, right? And also the business world is not friendly, and any salty businessman who's lived to tell the tale will tell a few stories about how to handle adversity and overcome self-doubt. How did you do that?
That's a really good question, and I think I just stopped giving a AF about what people thought about me, right? So I think growing up, I was very sensitive of what people would say, what think about me, and to be honest, if I listened to my parents' advice, I'd probably be a management consultant or continue to be a lawyer. And I think every venture that I got into up until this day, my parents were like, "Oh, why do you work so hard? Like doing this, it's not worth it. You should have a stable income and all that kind of stuff." And if I listened to them, I'd never do what I did. But I think you have to have a thick skin. You have to be really confident in yourself, right? There's always going to be haters. An even more recent example is that when Service Hero pivoted to become a disinfection company, right? So it's a leading on-demand home services company that within 48 hours we reskilled our technicians, our air conditioning technicians and cleaners to become disinfection agents. I think everyone thought I was everyone thought I was crazy. I think a lot of people thought I was crazy. They were like, "What the hell is he doing?" Right? Like, I mean, so having that conviction and that confidence in what you're doing is really important. And today there are many versions of disinfection to you now in the market. In fact, there's a disinfection for you, a disinfecting to you, a disinfectant for you, and a disinfection hero, all which have copied my website and platform, right?
So you are a market leader in this space.
This is 3 months into the future, but 3 months back, everyone thought that this is crazy. Like, this guy is now imported hazmat suits from China and now disinfecting buildings. But I didn't care, and I think I think if you're confident and it's grounded by reality, like, so you actually have some facts to back you up, you shouldn't. That's how you deal with adversity, right? And
great. We've got
so one more thing, which is I think
not a problem.
Communicating things very clearly as well. So it's one thing is having conviction in yourself, but you got to make sure that you're able to communicate your beliefs very clearly.
No, that's no doubt. You'd have to do that, and you have those few people that give you motivation to keep going, to keep your head up. And it's very important to surround yourself with people that really understand what it takes to be a great entrepreneur and to succeed.
Yeah, and I think the South African community is really growing when it comes to entrepreneurship and
definitely. And it is also through this platform that we're encouraging entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship spirit overall, to get more people to be interested into entrepreneurship, but at the same time also know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, there is a question coming in. There's two. The first one is, what is your motto in life?
Oh, that's a good one. What is my motto in life?
Yeah.
Be excellent. I think like if you do something, no, I've got one. So it's like be excellent, and I got two, right? So like average is never okay, right? So if you do something, make sure that it is excellent, that you're doing your best, and be resilient.
I think that's a good one. Resilience is key
Yeah,
to surviving
yeah.
as an entrepreneur.
You have to be so resilient, and I think that if you build that tough skin, that resilience, and know that pain is temporary, you know,
Karl?
you can achieve great things. Yeah.
We can still hear Karl. Maybe we lost Kucho there.
Oh no, was it his?
So you'll have to deal with the B team now.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you should carry on that statement, then I'll ask the second question.
Oh, okay. So what was I saying? I was saying that be resilient, because I think pain is temporary, and you can push through. You're resilient and resourceful. I think those are critical things to doing well. Yeah.
And then the last question we have from our audience named Chris. Karl, how did you convince your partners or first employees or workers to join you to start?
You know, I think I was just really optimistic and very energetic. I think that was it actually. So I mean, I had a strong conviction that I had an idea, and I was confident that it was going to work. But I think an energy that you put off is contagious, and it's super important, right? That if you believe in something so badly, you've got to show it and let people know, and they'll see it, and they want to join you on your ride, right? So yeah, be positive, give out positive vibes. I think.
That's Look, I just went out for a moment. There's just an issue with my internet, but I'm sure the audience got everything that you said. And I have Via Karin say she just tested internet speed. It's 12 megabyte per second, which is quite low in your standard.
That's crazy.
I know. So there's also another question from Chris. They want to know how you managed to convince your partners.
I answered that one.
Oh, okay, great, perfect. No,
yeah.
so sorry, I just, something just happened with my internet. I left and came back. So those are the issues in South Africa. Now, I want us to get into the growth of the company. What's next? How you plan on growing your current operations? And would you stop now putting a lot of effort into Service Hero, seeing that now you have made great traction, and you've it also achieved a lot of success with your company that you've pivoted because of COVID-19?
No, no, we're not going to pay less attention to Service Hero. In fact, we're just changing the way we operate Service Hero now as well. So things are reopening. So a few countries, so Malaysia's opened up, Thailand's pretty much opened up, Singapore is kind of opening up right now. So there will be a demand for home services, but the way in which it's being delivered is going to change, right? So previously it was about a random cleaner, a random technician coming into your home, and actually the app is relaunching next week, where we actually going to be more focused around long-term contracts and subscriptions. Now, people are more cautious about who they're letting into their home to do things, right? So having the same people each time is going to be really important, right? So it's less about an on-demand economy, but more about a pre-scheduled and pre-thought out schedule work economy, I think. So that's what's happening. There are going to be changes to the way that we deliver services on Service Hero. We are capitalizing on the opportunities that COVID-19 have brought to us to contain the virus. So disinfection continues to grow. So we're about to open our Middle East office next week. So
that's amazing. That's
now
great.
Being in Africa, we're opening a Middle East office as well. We started off doing basic kind of fogging of disinfectant. We actually started producing our own disinfectant. So we've got a factory now because we've got so much demand that we actually now produce our own disinfectants in Malaysia under our white label brand. And then having that visibility in Southeast Asia doing this virus containment stuff, we attracted a lot of interest from people that have just created such innovation. So one scientist in Germany reached out to me and he had created a coating that can be applied to a surface to make it resistant to COVID-19 for up to a year. So we managed to bring that product to Southeast Asia, and we have been applying it in a lot of prominent buildings across the region. So it's game changing. And so,
it's building great traction in the marketplace. I'm sure in due time, you would have a large percentage of the marketplace with so much innovation that you're bringing into East Asia.
We're bringing it to South Africa as well. So we're now working with the Kandua team to bring this innovation into South Africa, and hopefully we'll be coating the government buildings and public facilities in this. So, imagine that we, by kind of virtue of the success that we had with Disinfection to You, attracted interest from great innovators around the world that wanted to work with us to bring their products to market.
That's absolutely amazing. I think some of the people or some entrepreneurs end up becoming workaholic, right? And all they want to do is to work. Whilst you have other small business owners or startup owners that are in it to make the money and get out. Are you planning on retiring, or is this more that you want to do? I mean, you might have already achieved everything that you wanted to achieve.
I really enjoy building things, so I don't find that it's really, once you've found your groove and what you're good at, and I think I have a bit of a knack for building things. I kind of enjoy it. Look, at the end of the day, who wouldn't want to, lie on a beach and not have to do too much,
not do anything, just sleep, watch TV series, do whatever you want.
Yeah, but I think as long as I'm able to, I think I want to do something that makes an impact. I know it sounds really cliche. It's really important, guys, to actually have a balance. So if you talk to me 5 years ago, I think I was someone that was just work, and then it really impacted my health. And I'm honest about this, that there were times that I think my mental health suffered because I wasn't taking care of myself, right? Yeah. So it's important that you understand and founders understand the need to self-care, right? So you can work hard, but the thing is that you won't be productive unless you actually take care of your physical and mental health.
That's true.
And you're great outdoors in South Africa. You've got a lot of opportunity to do some really cool, fun stuff in South Africa to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. So you're always obviously going to keep on going and pivoting and finding new ideas and probably starting up a new company.
Maybe, or I do a little bit of investing now, but I think look, I think the ultimate goal is if you can retire and just kind of not ever have to worry about anything, right? Get whatever you want.
True. Any final thoughts? What advice would you give to people that are aspiring entrepreneurs or people that are running their own businesses right now, but because of the pandemic, they don't know what to do, they don't know how what to do next in growing their businesses. They're distressed about losing contracts or stuff. Yeah. What would you say to them now?
Okay, wow, so many things. So one is flexibility, like you have to be really agile, right? So I think the word is agility. Like I think it's super important. COVID-19 has changed the world forever. And I think you need to look really, have a really honest look at your business and think about whether or not it can survive post-pandemic, right? Makes tough decisions quickly, right? Be decisive. I think the worst thing you can do is actually just wait, right? And keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then not have a decision. So be decisive, take care of yourself, try to be positive. I think that it is actually a really stressful time to be a business owner. I can totally empathize with that. Don't delay decision making because it'll just make things more stressful for you. Reach out to people, stakeholders, keep them updated about what's happening. Talk to your investors. Don't shy away from giving them updates because they could help you as well.
Yes.
And I think that's enough advice for me. I think that was like 10.
No, I think that's valuable advice. That's great advice for small businesses and startup. It's right now. I know it's a lot of people are not thinking about starting businesses. It's about maintaining those that exist. But you mentioned the most important point for me is flexibility, agility, pivot, get into new spaces, try
Decisiveness. Right. So
exactly.
I'll give you a firm example, actually. So Servicer has another division, which is it makes software for small and medium-sized enterprises for labor management. And we actually put that project on hold after having spent 1 year in software development, and we launched this to the public about 1 week before the lockdown. And we realized a couple of months ago that actually our addressable market, which is small, medium-sized enterprises in the blue-collar area, but 50% of them have been eliminated as a result of
the
lockdown. So we had to put that project on hold, and we're very decisive. Engineering teams stopped work on any more development or support of that product, and we reallocated resources, right? So, take a hard look at what you're doing.
It happens, but becoming decisive will save you in the long run. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Karl, for joining us on our Inspire session. For those that have been with us now, you can get this on YouTube. It's recorded. It will be uploaded. And you can also, for news on some of the sessions, just visit our website, www.ettp.co.za. And also you will get the newsletters and everything related to entrepreneurship to the point. So the next session that will be coming up, we have a virtual innovation forum in partnership with a small enterprise development agency. It is happening from tomorrow at 10 till 11:30 on both days. So please do register now for free to get equipped on how to get your company on a digital space and how to get customers and also get advice from a law perspective. This session will be facilitated by the CEO and the founder of Entrepreneurship to the Point. Thank you so much for joining us. Do not forget to sign up at www.ettp.co.za. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.